Welcome to VFX and Chill. I'm Seth. I was not actually, I didn't know Hashi was doing that. This is the very first moment I am seeing Hashi's new medical condition, which appears to be incredible. Hashi, what happened?
Not much. Here, just 1 second. Let me.
Seamless.
Okay. I'm feeling much better
Seamless
now.
transition. That was incredible.
Seamless. Old Hollywood magic.
I'm good, man.
How you doing?
Hey, do you think that people know that we like Loki?
I think that we could do like 6 more episodes, so we outdo the number of actual Loki episodes.
We're gonna do 6 more episodes.
Perfect.
So here's the deal. Here's what I want to do. I want to introduce all of you to a very dear friend of mine, very dear friend of ours. He worked with Cantina Creative to make some of the coolest UI shots on in what's the show called? Loki and
Loki.
We have him here to show us all the cool things that he has done. So please give a very warm welcome, applaud like crazy for Mr. Darby Faccinto. Darby, welcome to the show.
Yo,
Darby, what's up?
How you doing? Yes, we're
so
looking
funny.
right at you guys. How's it going?
Right?
We are. Darby has an unusually large head, but
that's all that
this
hair.
is why he's great at
all that movie knowledge.
Yes.
Yes, some dope had actually, lined us all up correctly in OBS. We would his head would actually, he'd feel better. But Darby, dude, thank you for being here. We have like 1,000 questions.
Dude, ask them all.
Starting with, can you talk about how you came to work on? You don't have to get too detailed, but like how you came to work at Cantina and like, how'd you do it? How did you do it, Darby?
Yeah, so it was like a charity thing. They felt so bad for me.
That's so sweet.
They just wanted to save me from my pit of despair, honestly, because I was such a little fanboy. It was a hobby for so long. I was in college last year, not doing any of this at all. And a good buddy of mine, Jace Hansen, was just a friend through email, honestly, through high school, just because I was a nerd about this stuff. And we stayed in communication. Every 2 or 3 months, I would do something small and just talk to him about it, but nothing I ever thought seriously of. I went to visit him. He gave me a kick in the butt. It was like, dude, you can do this for real if you really try at it. So I left school, did a short indie-ish type film for about a couple months, and then got some stuff together, had an interview at Cantina, and so Loki was my first, honestly, real production and first production with Cantina.
Well,
that's
super
incredible.
Cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So to summarize, love something, quit school immediately, and
bother your mentors. Like, maybe not, I don't want to say
Right.
bother, but like, don't be afraid of them and reach out to them, because some of them are people like Jace, who appears from all accounts based on this story to be a wonderful human being who is incredibly supportive of younger talent. Big hugs on Jace. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he was just huge driving force for me to do it. He just knows so much too, so I kind of came well equipped before I even started, to be honest.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've loved Jace for years because he had one of the very first tutorials I followed on Creative Cow way back in the day.
All his old ones.
But now he's made some of the UI stuff for one of my favorite movies, The Mitchells vs. the Machines. So.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Shout out Mitchells.
He made a whole alphabet, I think, for that movie.
A whole language.
Man.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, Jace is in the chat, and he says you worked your money sign off. And Bobby Giles says, Darby, please tell Sean and Steven I said hello, because Bobby worked at Cantina for a few years in 15
cool.
to 17.
Love
Love
shout out to our Cantina gang.
Dude, Sean and Steven are here monitoring me closely, so I promise you they saw that.
They're
ready
just
with
off
the
screen,
NDA lawyers.
Got a gun right there. Don't you say anything marvelly.
From the
Darby would be, I remember it was maybe a clubhouse or something that we were in, like a clubhouse conversation or something we were on, and you got in and were like, yeah, I'm working on some really cool stuff right now, and we're all like, That's literally all he had said, and we're all like, Darby, don't say any more. You're going to get yourself killed or fired. We're so nervous.
He's known as the Tom Holland
Yes.
of information containment.
I hate how that precedes me.
But dude, you did it. You did it. You like,
I did.
I knew nothing. We knew nothing. It was a huge, awesome reveal. That, oh my God, that you worked on Loki and did like some of the coolest, some of our favorite shots, some like pivotal like imagery that's in this show you had your hands on and like with people's permission. That's incredible. So
yeah, with like permission to be creative. When I jumped in, our design lead, Andrew Harlock, he had like all this stuff from pre-production just laid out, like all of these awesome designs and concepts that really like were the backbone. And so I had a lot to like crutch off of because I was still learning a ton. But there were a lot of shots where like they just handed it to me and it was like trial by fire. Like, this is what they need. Just make it up. Good luck. And I'm like, I've never done this. So it was crazy to have like almost be given the reins on like such a huge IP and try to go from a fan to like a professional in like a week.
So there was a transition from fan to professional. It wasn't oscillating continuously throughout the process.
No, it was definitely oscillating. Like I remember watching all the shots back because we had a huge shot list of all of our stuff, and I would see all these like massive spoilers, right? And like nobody else on the team cared because they've done like a million movies and they're super talented and nobody cares. I care. So I'm watching like all these like theory videos on YouTube and I'm like, he's wrong, that's wrong. Like, I thought it was so cool. So no, it hasn't changed, but I can switch on professional mode to get hired back, I guess.
Because if you're an industry veteran, you're just like, they're killing Tony again.
Oh, another Marvel movie. Like.
Can we talk about? So let's talk about the shot that we want to talk about today, which was this.
Oh.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, let me move you over here. So that's the Sacred Timeline. This was a super cool shot. So this went through a bunch of different iterations.
I'm blocking the copyright. Sorry,
that's
it's right there. Don't do anything.
When you're working on stuff, especially for film, I've come to learn that like it's not good to get comfortable with anything because probably what you get comfortable with is not going to be what it ends up becoming. So with the Sacred Timeline, it went through so many different versions, but eventually we found this nice balanced version of simple, informative, and stylistic, and I really owe a lot of that to Andrew. I was just kind of there adding in all the little extras and honestly just talking to him about it. But once we got it down, most of my job, besides the few design elements that I did from like the few screens that Andrew didn't touch, I was either touching up the design to address notes or I was animating. And so that was a big portion of what I did. So making the timeline break, making all the cool like terminal texts. Really, that was mainly where I was put on.
Well, it's amazing that you got to be, I mean, Seth said it already, but it's such a pivotal visual simplification. Like if there's anything I associate that show with that describes the chaotic plot that's happening in a visually simple way for all the characters to rally around. It's that. So that's so cool.
It's so cool.
And it's funny because I remember watching like, of course, because I was talking to Jay, so I would see all the Iron Man HUD stuff constantly. And that was like a huge reference for me of like, I want to do that, you know? So I remember working on this and I remember him telling me how you don't really know when you're working on a project, how it's going to end up. And I'm like, well, that's a load of crap. Like it's Robert Downey Jr. Like, like, you know, it's going to be good. Like it's Iron Man. But I remember working on this and I was like, oh shoot. Like, I don't know if like this is cool to me, but I don't know if anyone's going to notice it. And then I remember like when the trailer came out and it showed like a scene of the timeline and my feed was just constantly like screenshots of it. They're like, what do all these lines mean? And like breaking down like my screen and stuff. I was like, oh shoot, like we did it.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So it was awesome.
Sorry, we have an echo happening.
Yeah.
I'm trying to solve it while Darby's talking. So
Yeah. So if you're joining us, this is VFX and Chill, where Seth and I usually try to cheaply recreate visual effects that we see on TV. And yeah, if you're a viewer, you know that we've covered Loki a few times because it's just full of wonderful effects. And so it's really exciting to have Darby here with us, who actually literally created these effects from the show. And what do you think we should do today, Seth?
I think we should do this. Like, I think we should 100% try our hand at. Well, I don't want to try to make this. I want to watch Darby make it. And Darby, since you were designing, talk about process. You were designing the graphics, and then you'd hand it off to a compositing team, correct? And the compositing team was internal at Cantina?
Yeah, for this one. So Andrew was the design lead, and then I worked with another guy called Daniel Zhang, and I believe Christopher Brady was also on there, but I never talked to him. And so that was like the design team, along with some other Houdini artists who were awesome. And our compositing team was headed up by Tony Lupoy, and those compers were incredible. I mean, they just like I would give them this flat image, and they would just make it look so in-world. I mean, that right there looks so real. Like, you would think that's like playback almost.
It does. And style-wise too, it matches it lives there. It also matches like the aesthetic of the rest of the room behind it and the screen that it's on.
And honestly, how wonderful to have that all in-house. Like, having the compositing team in-house is so nice because there are so many steps at which the visual effects ball can be fumbled. And so, it would be so nice to know that your images had that integrity all the way through the end.
Yeah.
It's all scary to hand off assets to somebody else and just know they're going to do what they do.
It's true.
No, I mean, it was a blessing. And it was cool because when we would work on this stuff, Tony would reach out and be like, hey, what was your intent here? Or a lot of times he would create like a look for him. And I'm like, Tony, this is how it should look, or this is what we think as the design team it should be presented as. And they would match that into the shot. It's so funny because it's just random stories like this, like where I would be out like with friends, like getting like McDonald's or something, right? And like Tony would call me and like I would step away and he's like, hey, for this timeline, do you want this to like be a little bit more pixelated? Like they're doing this in this shot. And it was just such a weird conversation because I would step out of like college boy world, talk about this, hang up, and then step right back into like being stupid. So it was really cool to be able to have those conversations with him.
Well, and it's so cool that he asked you that stuff. Like you got to be part of the process, and like it's just a collaborative thing. That's awesome. Well, speaking of collaborative thing, what that leads me to do is I want to watch you. I want to watch you build this graphic, and then if there's time, I figure Hashi and I could explore some different ways of compositing it because that tends to be our bread and butter a little bit. I think I much more so than what we're about to watch you do. So I think we have your After Effects here. Let's go look and see. Let's look at all of us together. Here we go. Now we're in the timeline.
Hey.
Cool. Yeah, so you just want me to jump straight into it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I made a reference comp just to show you guys roughly what we're going to end up with, but we'll make it a little bit prettier. So the whole sacred timeline can actually be made in one shape layer. And this is what we did on the show. So yeah, so the actual base timeline, and we'll hide everything else so you can see, is just this dude right here. And what's going on in this shape layer is we have our path. So I just drew a straight line right across the middle of the screen. And I threw on a wiggle paths effect and made it smooth, kind of subtle, like almost like an ambient wave. And I created little points here on the timeline that I'm animating up here on the path, which I'll go through here in a second. But I'm animating these paths up, and you're kind of getting this distortion when something bad's happening. And so what we did is that we made these new shape layers, which are the time branches. And of course, you can throw as many of those on there as you want. But we just threw those on there, keyframed them in, and we ended up with this really cool effect. So we will try to redo that.
That's all in one.
Are we literally saying that shape layers?
No.
It's just the.
Finish the sentence, Hashi. It's important you finish the sentence.
Shape layers and I have had a rough relationship.
Oh, I didn't know about
but
this.
It's a
I'm
neglectful
happy for
one
him.
because a shape layer is always an accident. No one ever sets out to make a shape layer. It's always, I'm going to draw this mask. Damn it. Because then a shape layer appears because you had nothing selected. And you're like, who uses shape layers? Turns out.
But like Darby, if you're persistent enough, look, you end up in a
Incredible.
Marvel show.
You use shape layers.
I'm happy for you, shape layers.
Well, we use shape layers a lot because a lot of our design work is just straight up in Illustrator for our vector stuff. And when we bring it in, we'll either remake it with a shape layer and use the design as a template, or we'll convert some of the Illustrator files to a shape layer depending on the call. So the concept for this was in Illustrator, and when we brought it in, we just found a shape layer to be the easiest way to show it.
Wonderful. So how much of your work do you think, how would you split up the softwares that you use through the day, Darby?
Okay, so me personally, I'm mainly in Illustrator and After Effects. Haven't really touched Photoshop. I'd imagine I'd get more into that when we're trying to do some textures or kind of add a special effect. But most of our stuff is through Illustrator and After Effects. And most of our comping is in After Effects too. Most of the comp team used After Effects with a little bit of Nuke.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It was cool to do that because we would have project files set up where like one comp would be design and the other comp would be the comper's comp. And so you could just see what they were doing back and forth, which is cool. And then I know we used Houdini on some shots later in the show.
I love that Hashi's cheering there. It's not because he works for Adobe at all. It's like... It's because neither of us want to learn another compositing tool because we've spent so much of our lives.
Yes, this is purely self-preservation.
Well, no, I mean, I think this will keep some longevity to it for sure. I mean, they're masters. I would open their comps and they'd have like hundreds of duplicate layers with different things flipped to get certain looks, and it was so subtle. It was way beyond me, but I'll stick with my shape layer.
I'll stick to my shape layer.
Jace says...
I mean, yeah, like from
simplicity's most complicated thing.
What was that? One more time.
Yeah.
Simplicity is the most complicated thing to pull off.
That was Abraham Lincoln. Thank you, Michael, for that wonderful quote from history. Darby, where were we? Help me understand. I don't understand how the paths are coming off of the path. Am I dumb?
No, you're not dumb. How about we jump into it? I'll remake it, and then I'll show you. That'll probably be the best thing to do. So, first thing you want to do, make a shape layer. If this takes you
like 2 seconds, I'm going to be angry.
It might. I'm not going to lie. So this is the sacred timeline. We'll just call it that. Now, for the color in the show, it's not a pure white. It's kind of more of like a darkened gray. So we'll go for something like that. And just go straight across the middle, and you got a line. So this is your base sacred timeline. I'm at a 5-point stroke. Our resolution was a little bit different on the show, so for this, we can go to like an 8 to give it some thickness so we can see it a little bit better.
But you had it at 5?
And so right now...
Was it at 5 in the show?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit thinner, but that's just based off the resolution we were working at. So just so you guys can see it, I'll kind of scale it up to 8. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to start adding branches to it. The wiggle paths effect, you want to apply directly to the shape layer here, because if you apply it globally, your branches will be affected. So make sure you have the base shape layer for the sacred timeline, which will be shape 1 if you do it this way. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to want to throw on a wiggle paths. And this is how we kind of got the style in the show. So I'm going to make the size really big so you can see what I'm doing here. Right now it looks super jaggedy, and you're going to have like this really nasty, like gross wiggle, which could be cool in its own right, but not really what we need for a fluid flow of time.
I feel like a lot of like FUI integration is accidentally switching stuff on or off and realizing, oh, that's kind of cool. and then spending like hours trying to figure out why it looked that way and how to reproduce it.
I've got I have a tool belt full of just mistakes that I use for application.
A tool belt full of mistakes is actually the name of our VFX Essential book we'll be writing, our biography. Tool belts full of mistakes.
That's so funny. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, if you just play around with stuff, you'll find all kinds of things, and just keep record of them. Because I always tell myself, "Oh, I'm going to remember that," and I don't. I never remember it, so I need to write it down, or I won't. But yeah, so first thing you want to do is you're going to want to switch points down here to smooth. So this will take each little, I guess it's like a vertice almost, that it's creating here on the line, and it'll smooth it out to a rounded shape. So now we've got something a little bit more waveform, but it's still a little crazy for what we might want. Wiggles per second is just going to basically be showing how much is, or how rapidly these things will be happening. So I'm going to crank that down, and it's much slower and approachable. And we're going to crank the size down to something like 15 maybe. And we can maybe crank the detail back. So the detail is just going to add a little bit smaller moves to the bigger moves. And we don't really want it to get too detailed on us. So maybe 7. So now we've got like this nice, barely visible ambient animation that we can maybe crank up a little bit. Yeah, something like that. So
well, it's
it's
so
like
funny. So far, you've on several occasions been like, so usually the line is much thinner. I'll turn it up so you can see it, and then it's a very subtle animation here. I just want to keep remembering those things because I have a feeling we're going to fall into this a lot, where we're going to start. You're doing a lot of very subtle, tiny things that together make up one very noticeable image.
Yeah.
We can come back to this. I have a thought on this, but I want you to keep validating it before I say it.
Okay, then I'll save.
No, actually, no. Dab, no. Actually, say it. That's better.
Say it? Okay, so Loki is an okay example of that. A lot of the graphics in the show are pretty. I mean, they're pretty, bare. I mean, it's like old tech. It's DOS style. It can't have a ton of little extra things thrown in because it's supposed to be these old tube TVs. But especially like the hologram stuff, the Iron Man stuff, a lot of those little details you see and the little things that just make it feel cinematic have nothing to do with like, let me throw in this layer and put a glow on it and like that's what's gonna happen. It ends up being like a really thin or a very like barely visible layer that's duplicated. One's blurred, one has like 30% opacity, one has like high contrast set on or something, and these things stack up and they create like a really complicated looking look when really it's just like 5 or 6 things thrown on top of each other instead of just trying to get it all out of one layer.
Wow,
that's wonderful advice. If you're a Maxon fan and happen to tune into our 3D motion show this week, we had John Lepore from Perception also talking some 3D FUI kind of stuff, and some similar and alternate kind of tips there if you all want to check that out.
Yeah, John's awesome. Me and him talk about cars all the time. Big car guys.
So good at FUI cars.
Oh, he's awesome. So this is what we got right now. So we've got this ambient, static, no variance. Loki's not screwing anything up. This is how the TVA intended the timeline to work. So now we get to add some points to this timeline. So I'm going to select the shape layer. I'm going to click this. And for the sake of getting confusion out of the way, I'm going to disable the wiggle paths just so we can have this straight line to apply our points. And I'm going to throw in a few here, maybe here. And there's no real like rhyme or reason to what I'm doing here. This is just me saying this is where I think it should move. So you can place these all over the timeline.
You got a specific coordinates from Marvel on where on the line the dots were supposed to be, and you followed them accordingly, correct?
Well, when I first started working, that's how I thought it actually worked. I was like, oh, so you want me to animate this, so where do they want this to move up? And he's like, well, just do what you think looks good.
What?
And I'm like, that doesn't matter. Marvel tells me what looks good. Yeah, I'm like, who cares what I think? I need to make sure it looks good. So this is like After Effects 101, just animating a path, just like you would anything else. And we're going to select the shape, and as time progresses up, so we can go here. I'm going to do this in 5 seconds. So we'll go to a little bit over 5. And I'm just going to drag these up and create, and create these nice little, looks like I flipped all of these. I'm going to create these nice little subtle poles on the timeline. kind of like something bad's going down. Which in episode 2, if you guys saw it, actually I believe that's where that screenshot was you showed from earlier, Seth. When the timeline breaks, the sacred timeline will branch up. So it's not like it stays static. It will move up and start to have a variant to it, I guess.
Oh, yeah. The main path has to move before that branch comes off. You're right.
Yeah, because earlier in the show we had these nice like ambient shots of it just sitting there dead, and now things are hitting the fan.
Things hit the fan.
Things hit the fan. So this is slowly, and this is honestly a little slow. We can maybe speed it up. Maybe we'll do this in 3 seconds, and we'll bring this in a bit just to have a little bit more speed on it. So stuff's going on. Everything is going crazy. Loki's freaking out. The TVA is calling everybody. So now we need to throw in our branches on the timeline. So all I'm going to do is select the layer. We can close out this shape. And here, before anything animates, is where you want to add your lines at, so you have a good idea of what's going on. So I'm just going to take my pen tool, and I'm going to click not on the timeline because I'll add a point, but I'm going to click out here in dead space. And I'm going to draw something that looks like a branch. Kind of like that. Now, this is just a design tip that was drilled into my head when we were doing this. The line can't draw out and then look like it's just going to go this way. It needs to look like it's constantly moving out if you want that effect of the branch. So if you just add a subtle slightness to it, it looks like it has a lot more life in it than if it is curving out to the right or left, looking like it's about to die. So we give a little bit of a character to it, something like that. And so now you just do that a bunch. So I'm going to make a bunch of these just so we can get a cool look for it. And I will show you how we get it to stick to the timeline.
Yeah, you see me about to ask that, don't you?
I know you're about to ask.
Well, I have some theories, but I'm not going to say them. I just want to see you. I want to see if you never mind. I was trying to think of a way to phrase that to where I sounded like a total D-bag, but
you want to see if you're right. You want to see if you're right. That's okay.
So wait, can you?
I dropped a link. Sorry, I was going to say I dropped a link in the chat to both John Lepore's specific presentation, but also to the whole 3D motion show that happened this week, because the whole thing was FUI focused.
Oh yeah.
So we had 4 main presentations from artists who do FUI, including John Lepore, and we had a little bonus presentation from someone you all might know, and those links are in the chat.
Was it Harrison Ford? It was Harrison Ford, wasn't it? No, it was Michael. Hey,
Harrison Ford.
That's excellent. Please, everyone, go check out those links in the chat. Thank you, Michael.
After the show.
Oh yeah, not now. Good God, stay here. Why would you
later.
leave this beautiful Darby face? Stay here. Keep watching this.
Yeah, look at these.
Look at these paths. Look at these lines. Darby, real quick, can you help me clarify what you meant about? You were saying about the branches, their direction, and how they shouldn't be. Can you show me what they shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, I can show you on this guy. So let's say we have the branch moving down like this. What it doesn't need to be is completely horizontal. So, for example, you're not going to see this line ever reach down here, right? Like it's just going to have the effect like it's going to continue to grow and then the shot will cut. But if the shot cuts on the line almost being completely flat, that's giving us an idea of like, okay, well then it's not continuing to deviate off the timeline. It's just now going to be stagnant, almost like it hit like a ceiling, like it can't vary it anymore. So Andrew was like, dude, I don't even know how Andrew knows how the multiverse works, but he did somehow.
He's from it. He's not from here.
He was like, let me tell you how this is going to work. Yeah, he's not from here, dude. He's way too smart. He was like, make sure that these are angled at least a little bit down. That way it's going to give the viewer an idea of progression. Like if you were to pause it, I believe if you want to pull back up that screenshot real quick, I can show you. So you can see like these lines look like they will have more life to them. They're either going to go straight
divergent.
Up, or at an angle. So if we were having them angled flat, it'd be really confusing if we had like 10 of those and it looked like they just stopped at a certain point.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind if you were trying to recreate this effect and make it look as accurate as possible, do something like that and impress all your friends. So yeah, I'm going to show you the non-glamorous way to get these to stick to the sacred timeline. Because we would constantly get notes back and things would change a lot, we basically had to brute force this because there was no good way that I found to hook these up. I'm sure there's an expression that makes me look really stupid with what I'm about to do. But what we did for these shots, just them being so small and about 3 seconds, sometimes the max, I would just brute force animate these. So I'll follow this, and I'm just going to move the line up.
No.
I know it kind of hurts, but
it does work. That's incredible.
It works
beautifully.
I mean,
so this is kind of what we did.
So then, when you get notes back, you just delete keyframes and do it again.
Yeah, we would change. They may say, "Hey, we want another branch. Or we want less branches, or can you move this over?" So we just found ways to get that done, and so it kind of looks like it's stuck to the timeline.
Look at that, you animal! That's incredible.
It's not as glamorous as I kind of hoped for it to be, but
it shouldn't be. None of visual effects are glamorous. I'm going to repeat this. Nothing in visual effects is glamorous except renders. Renders are the only things that are glamorous.
Well, that's the comp team. Honestly, makes it glamorous. They got my stuff. And they're like, ooh.
Yeah, the final image, like that, you can have all the duct tape and chicken wire behind the final comp you want, as long as those pixels right up front worked out.
Exactly. It's so funny how that works. And like I said, I went from a fan to, I hate the word professional because I don't feel like one, but I went from a fan to
Darby, they pay you for your work?
They do.
Was your work Loki also? Like, literally, the answer to Hashi's question is enough to say, yes, I'm a professional. But I'm going to remind you, you're here representing the work you did with Cantina Creative on Loki. You're a pro.
You're right. I'm a professional now. All right. Well,
if you're just joining us, we are here with professional Marvel Loki visual effects artist from Cantina Creative, Darby Faccinto, who is showing us
Hashi and Seth
how to destroy the sacred timeline.
Oh man,
yes, this is how you bomb.
I can't believe you're manually keyframing these. So I'm trying to think of Hashi. What would be the glamorous way to do this? Because I thought, oh, he probably parents the points to, and then I realized there's nothing to parent them to.
There isn't. I mean, there are some like paths to null kind of situations, but I stay away from all that.
You have to have the points at that.
You need to know.
Yeah, you'd have to have the points laid out on the original path, and
then if someone came and said, "Hey, I don't like that," then it's over.
I have a thought.
I forgot we have Michael here, who knows more than any of us. Michael.
No, that's not true. I do not know more than any of you. Here's my thought is, well, I agree with Jace that you could spend 2 days trying to find an elegant solution or 10 minutes doing a brute force. True. My thought is make the path with the branches, and then instead of using the wiggle paths, use a really subtle keyword turbulent noise over top of the whole thing.
But then that's
gonna be subtle.
Funny that you say that. Well, it's funny that you say that.
It would change the shape of the line too much. See, like it wouldn't keep the line being this pure thickness. It would subtly change the width of the lines, and I think brute force is the best way to do it. Now, alternatively, if you made a Roto-Bezier spline, and so that way it's always a nice curvy spline, and use the nulls to points script so that you moved the nulls and created the waviness by hand, then you could have the branching things also be made.
Those would just be parented with an offset.
Nulls that are parented, but again, I think the brute force way, while not elegant, gives you the most control and is probably the fastest way to get it done. Because if you do it the nulls way, then you have to have nulls controlling your main point at the part the other nulls are coming off of, so you lose the control and the art that you need to have done. So I think Darby's got the best solution.
Is there a way to?
Yeah, and
go ahead, Darby.
No, I was going to say it's funny. Michael brought up turbulent displacement, or is it displacement?
Displace, I think.
Displacement in a.
Yeah, you're right. The turbulent displace. So Andrew, I left the show at the end of April, and I think they were still doing some work on it. And Andrew was telling me that for the one of the screens that we did where all the branches are breaking off, showing like the new multiverse at the very end of the show, right? For them to do that shot, they actually just drew out the timeline like I'm doing now, but everything was one shape layer, and they threw the turbulent displace on top of it and had a subtle effect because nothing was really going on. But I from what I could gather, it looked like there wasn't any like major branches happening because they were already on screen. So sometimes you can get away with that.
Is there a way to do like a turbulent displace to have it apply to null objects, not to like a visual like shape or anything like that?
There is the noise expression, which is like wiggle, but is being controlled by a different kind of noise. And you can have like a whole wave of, you can make basically you make like form with a whole bunch of circle shapes that are then animated by the noise expression. So yes,
that's the only way I can think of, is to do like the path to nulls with the roto Bezier, and then do like a noise expression to all of them. Have your branch nulls be offset again. But I love that whoever said it in there, you could spend 2 days coming up with an elegant solution or 10 minutes brute forcing it. That's the best. That's an excellent description.
Jace said he learned that from Stephen Laws at Cantina.
Lovely. So I would throw out that you could have your stroke in the middle and then do something like 10 puppet pins across it. Do the puppet pins to nulls tool, and then have a location for each of your pins. But it would mean that every branch was always happening at a puppet distortion point. So if you were asked to add one anywhere in between, you're again out of luck.
Yeah, every elegant solution ends up with you being boned when a change comes.
Which is so funny because the elegant solution is meant to be, the idea of doing it that way would be that, I can just move this thing over here and the entire rig will just respond appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that looks so good.
I think this looks good, but we're going to make them grow now, which is another super simple shape layer effect called trim paths, which I use all the time for numerous different things. And trim paths basically just draws a shape layer on. You can use it for all kinds of cool different effects if you have circles or squares or something, but in this application, we're literally just going to draw the branch on. So it's animated now. We're going to have this nice, smooth draw out. And to make it look accurate, you want to go into the stroke, and you want to change the line to a round cap to get this nice little end here. So butt cap is rectangular, round cap is rounded. That's kind of how you want it to be shown. Very subtle, but it's important.
Gorgeous.
So same pretty easy thing here. So we'll just start here at 0, and we'll go a little bit past the endpoint because you don't want it finishing. You want it to look like it's continuing to grow. And so if we go back here in the work area, you got this nice branch forming off.
Another point about round caps, by the way, if people don't know, I got this advice from Todd Vaziri himself. Lightsabers have round cap at the end, or at the end of them are meant to be round and not immediate fall off, which is something I didn't realize when making lightsabers.
My latest lightsaber video messed up the round caps on the end the way I tried to comp them.
And that's why Todd's not talking.
Not happy with how they turned out. I knew it. I knew there was a reason.
Round caps, man, you'll lose friends over it for sure.
That's also my street band name, my street gang name. Round caps.
Let's see. So I copied the effect, Control-C, straight from Shape Layer 2, and I'm applying it to each layer now. And I'm doing a little bit of an offset to it to just kind of give it a different feel. Just to make everything feel like I touched it individually when I really did.
Ooh. Now, you're doing something that I happened to see a really cool tool that Zach Levat made the other day and released for free. Let me see if I can find it, but it is a...
What's happening? Sorry.
It's a way... Look at that.
The branch.
No, you got to stop for the timeline.
Look at that.
You can maybe speed some of them
So
up
did they all start at the
more.
same time, the branches? I don't remember in most of the shots. Or were there some shots where the starts would be offset too?
There were some where the starts were offsetted, which I'm glad you brought that up because I'll do it. So let's see. So some things maybe start.
So what was that tool, Hashi?
Later.
Let me find exactly what it was called, but okay, I'm going to share this with Michael. It's called key sets, and what it allows you to do is you can highlight any group of keyframes in your comp, even on multiple layers, and then store that highlighted set. It's a little bit like a point selection almost out of Cinema, but if you wanted to, you could do something like highlight all the start and end points on the strokes here and then save them somewhere. So at any point later, you could recall them all at the same time and adjust them.
Wow. That's cool.
So really cool feature. Let's see, I'm going
did you
to...
say key sets? What did you say?
Key
sets, as in sets of keys, not as in keyframes making more keyframes. Because when a hold keyframe loves another hold keyframe,
normally
very
nothing
much.
happens. But in this world that I just posited, that would be chaos. So
excellent. Oh yeah, and Michael,
you have to ease. You know what? I'm not going to make that joke.
Oh no! Oh boy. That's only funny. That's only funny if you know After Effects. If you don't, then you'll just have to make up your own euphemism.
That's probably the nerdiest joke I've ever heard of in my life. You wouldn't get it.
Welcome to VFX and Chill, Darby.
Right.
So what's next?
Let's see. Well, it looks like right now I'm going to give some color to our branches. And now this is sometimes where it can get annoying, which I should have checked before I did this, but you know what? You can now see how the process works. So sometimes when these branches are moving and we're adding color to them, like the end of the line will butt out on the other side. For example, you can see that here. This is the start of the line. And so when you add the orange in there, sometimes you kind of have to play around with the path we already made. So that's where it can get annoying. I purposely didn't do that, right, to show you how I did it. So let's go through and we'll get the same color code here. I just picked like this nice, making it a little bit more brown with it, this TVA amber orange that we used in the show. And we'll apply that. We'll just go down the list here and we'll see what this looks like. Any doctoring.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
So I've decided in the background what I'm going to do, Darby, is I'm going to try to create a TVA-esque monitor out of a cool model that Seth found for me this morning. So I'm just doing some modifications on that. And then I'm going to try to pursue being able to take an image that you create. What are the comp dimensions you have over there? Is this like an HD-ish thing or is this wider?
Yeah, this one's just 1920 by 1080.
Well, I'll make a placeholder for something that size.
Yeah, Darby, when you get it to a good-looking place, I'd love if you could just render out like a frame, like a good frame where it's the branches are filled out, and I'm going to composite it as a still onto a image of a TV that I've found. And you can just text that to me or whatever you want to do, however you want to get it to me.
Yeah. Let's see,
no rush at all.
No, you're good.
This is beautiful. We are getting to work with an actual pro for the first time live on VFX and Chill, who worked on the show that we were.
Well, because how much?
You guys talked about it multiple times.
So how much digitization stuff did you? Is this literally right here what you would send to Compositor like this?
We're missing the Mosaic. That'd be the last thing that I would add on here. So once you get it to a good spot, which I just did, feel cool about that. I'll just make sure everything's rounded. We got stuff growing out. This guy could look a little bit more curved, kind of looking funky.
Like he's variating quite a bit.
Yeah, let's see. So this is the only annoying part about the method that I showed you guys with the path. If you want to make a change, say, to the shape of the line, you have to redo the entire path because the path's being animated. So if I was to change the end here and change the shape. Oh, wait, can I mess with the stroke maybe?
Well, actually, I wonder if you could do this. If you just selected that path so all the keyframes were selected, so like go down in your timeline and click the letter path, and then make sure you're on a keyframe. Make sure you're on a frame where there is a keyframe.
Mhm.
And then see if you grab that point and move it if the rest of the... Well, it may not. This happens...
It's going to do a global.
It will do a global like move?
Yeah, because see, both of these are now solid, so we'll do a global.
Oh,
the only way
you're
I
right.
found,
You're right.
Yeah, I have to reanimate because this is the shape is the path.
Yep.
So yeah, so you kind of have to redo that, which is a little bit annoying. But it's all right for the sake of the look. I'm gonna turn off the trim paths right now just so we can redo this path.
Do you have any recollection, Darby, of how many times this timeline is featured on screen that needed to exist in a unique way throughout the series?
Like
how did you keep track of that? I know that I feel like it was a constant presence in the show, and it was always different in that regard. So it feels like somewhere existed an absurd spreadsheet of each one.
Well, the biggest one I can remember is episode 2 when she bombs the sacred timeline, and then at the very end they have the big multiversal craziness going on. And then there was a couple ambient shots of it where it's just kind of sitting there, and then there's one where the variant line will recede back down. And I think that's like where Loki and Loki are holding hands, and then the TVA arrests them, and then the line goes away.
Oh, and then it goes away.
Beautiful.
That was unique. Everything else with the timeline where it was just existing in the back with all the locations we put across the top scrolling by, that was all just one big long comp, and I filled it up with a ton of names, and then we just had it like generating for like a stupid amount of time, and I would render it out, and then they would scrub through and put different locations in the show at different points. So we tried to get away with not making like very tiny little like 3-second timeline compositions, and we didn't have to. We could just have a big master like ambient file.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the type of thing that once you get into actually doing a show gets very complicated, especially if you're proud of the way one thing turned out, and then they're like, sweet, we need 400 more of them.
Yeah.
Slightly different, doing these things instead.
So then you duplicate comps and you don't remember, and you start messing with pre-comps, and you forget that comp actually is still linked. The pre-comp is still locked to the other comp, and you've screwed that one up now, and your name is Seth, and you'll never work in this town again.
Yeah, that was my fear.
It's everyone's fear.
That was my fear for 4 months.
Did you just like save? That's just as a workflow question. Do you do each shot in its own project file, or do you have like a big project file with a bunch of comps?
Yeah, so each shot specific effect would have its own comp.
What about its own project? What, project
within
file?
like a master?
Or I'm sorry, their own project file is what I meant. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, so each thing would have. I kind of tried to redo it here, but failed because we don't have a shot name. But it would be like shot RG12 _ timeline anim _ version like 801 or something. And then maybe my initials at the end, just so we know who touched it last.
Now that was a coded massive spoiler for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you can decode the initials.
I just blew it.
Blew it. You're gone, Darby. We never see him again.
This guy looks better here on the end.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better. So here they are breaking off. And the only effect that's not like a glow or anything that has to do with compositing is this mosaic effect, which is built into After Effects. And
Mosaic.
Turn on sharp colors to get nice little jagged lines and crank it up. Get it going. And you want it subtle. It doesn't need to look pixelated. It needs to look jaggedy. That's what we ended up with in the show. So something...
Again, the word subtle.
Subtle, yeah. Like this kind of subtle.
We should have made a drop for subtle, and it should have been just like a tiny little missed minutes that you can't even see with like hairline paths, strokes created. Look at that.
So what I like about this effect is it looks like this is being drawn from, instead of it just flowing out and looking like it's originating from the point, it looks like something's drawing it on.
Turn it
almost
off.
Like a graphite kind of look.
Turn it off and back on.
So there it is moving. And then with the mosaic, you can see like distortion, almost like it's being drawn on like a pencil.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. So
did you have an imaginary resolution per type of
Screen.
display used in Loki? Like the temp pad versus the
yeah. The TemPad and the the chrono monitor is what this is called, and the big ticker, which we can jump into if you guys want to. Those were.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to jump into a big ticker?
Okay, we can do that.
Abraham Lincoln said that too. Actually, people don't know. Anyway, yes, Darby.
Michael has a lot of Abraham Lincoln quotes.
He had a lot to say about FUI in films.
He did. He was a pioneer.
Yes, he was a pioneer.
Abraham Lincoln, Hudslayer.
Hudslayer.
Yeah, so Hashi, I could not tell you the resolutions off the top of my head, but they were.
But you had a
unique.
plan.
Yeah, and that came from the compers. They would kind of look at it, and I remember getting like, Tony would reach out and say, "Hey, dude, for this shot, make sure it's this resolution. This is what's going to work best for us." And so we would kind of work together on that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so this sucker's looking good. So, Seth, do you want me?
Yeah, render me out just a little, like the last frame of it, and then and then send me, because I'm not going to be doing any motion stuff, I don't think, unless I run it through your thing you're about to show for the ticker. But do you create different imagery for the ticker? You know what I'm talking about, for the thing you're about to show us?
Yeah. So the ticker will be different.
Then just render a frame of this.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to maybe see what Hashi has going on while I do that? Because it might take me a second.
You know what? That's a great idea. Hashi, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? I'm going to come over here, and then when you're done sharing your screen... Well, oh, wait, where'd Darby go? Come back, Darby. Here you are, Darby.
All right.
All right, let me see here. Give me half a second here.
Half a second.
All right. Share screen.
Michael, anybody got any questions out there for Darby?
Yeah, there were some questions. Someone was wondering if you could taper the strokes and why you did not do so.
You mean to kind of create like that cut
that
effect on
like
the end
stylistic
of the round
choice,
cap?
doesn't it?
Yeah, stylistic choice. So, you can have the stroke, it starts nice and thick and then gets tapered towards the end. And they were wondering why. Well, I don't know if they were actually wondering why. They were just asking if you could. I'm like, yeah, you can have tapered strokes in After Effects. I'm like, what? Since when? I'm like, May 2020 is when they added taper strokes natively to After Effects. But anyway, the question was, the question
That's the fastest I've ever heard Michael talk, ever.
He's like, yeah, of course.
Anyway. Since you can have tapered strokes, stylistically, why did you not taper the strokes on the Sacred Timeline?
That was just purely because Andrew told me not to. That was he was our design lead, so really everything I did was filtered through him, which was then filtered through Donna Cullen, who was a producer on the show. And so Andrew would get my stuff, check it out, and be like, hey man, I think this might look a little bit better for what they're wanting. And then we would collect it. Once we would give that to Marvel, we would meet with them, show it to them, talk to them about it. And a lot of the times they had like a lot of detail oriented stuff that may not have been story related, but just like look. So I can't remember exactly along the line who said, hey, let's make sure they look like this, but it came from one of those chains of command.
Yes, all you have to do is see the credits to any Marvel project to understand that a massive amount of cooperation is required to for them to come to fruition.
And something that I learned fairly recently is that like that's not even all the people that worked on it. Like at certain houses, you have to hit a certain hierarchy or something to be able to even land in the credits. And so like the number of people you see at the end of a Marvel movie is still just a fraction of the people that touched it and worked on it, which is insane.
It is insane. So, Seth, today you found this great model on Sketchfab. This is by, I'm going to say Tom Seddon right here.
Thanks,
this
Tom
is the, thank you. So this really lovely retro kind of looking TV set, which I grabbed, and I just did a little screen capture of what I was up to. So I had the model in Cinema, and I'm just going to sort of jump through basically I kind of like grabbed some of the little antenna holders on it. I got rid of the antennas and kind of put them over on the side of this TV. And then the hardest part was that it was kind of rotated to an arbitrary angle. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was straight. And so once I got it mildly aligned, I separated the screen texture, the glass texture, and added these little knobs on the side, and then took off the footboard, put it up above the screen so it could look more like an undermount kind of situation. Drew a simple little path here, and then swept a circle along it to kind of align with these two little antenna nubs, and so now they look a little bit more like holders. And just an additional cylinder. My contributions are these flat gray pieces to this model, but they will all look better once I import them over to After Effects, where I have them set up in a couple little instances of Element 3D. So let's see, what have we got here? So I have one comp that is just my screen, and the reason I have that as just the screen is because I want to use it as its own compositing layer. This is reflecting the interior of my living room cabin. So what we got here is basically a 3D comp. We have my glass being screen transferred on top, so you have a bit of reflectivity from the room, and I could kind of turn this up and down depending on how well I want this information to read. And I have a 1920 by 1080 comp. I just real quick threw in our VFX and Chill logo, and then if you can see up close, I added some CC ball action, which is a real quick way to convert it to some, arbitrary
CC ball action.
I love my CC ball action. So I've thrown it in here, and right now I am going to try to set this up as a kind of smoky-looking Loki scene. I doubt that sounded lovely.
Smoky-looking Loki scene? You bet your ass it sounded great.
Smoky-looking Lokis. So let's see. What have I grabbed this dark background. I just looked for dark room on PX here. I don't know how you say that. If it's Pix here, if it's PX here, whatever. But it's a lovely royalty-free site where you can get lots of kinds of images. Nice. And this image really just felt it was the same kind of vibe as the low-tech thing. And so I just kind of want to put it here in the background. And honestly, I'm going to blur the hell out of it. So almost doesn't matter its actual position. But I'll actually probably turn it into a 3D layer and then push it back in the distance and then scale it up. And why that'll be helpful is just because now I can, as I orbit the camera around here, you'll get a better sense of this room being a space. And I might even try to figure out how to turn on some cool depth of field stuff to make this TV look better. So here's what I got. Awesome. And whatever we put in here should be able to dynamically change. And I just need to swap out whatever is behind this pre-comp. I'm going to dive into some of the specific high settings within Element because I'm using some custom layers right here, which help bring in that screen pre-comp. And then I can also have that port to this texture there. And then if I go to my render settings, I could enable some things like the, I think glow settings are down here somewhere. And I can have it glow from its own illumination channel. So it has a little bit of interior glow happening within the effect, which is kind of cool.
Now, do you want, I could send you the whole timeline that I just made, or would you want to put a ticker on there, or do you have something you're going to pop?
I will throw anything on here. I will take audience suggestions. I will take your comp, whatever you would like.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I sent Seth a screenshot.
Where did you send it? I don't see it in my email.
I really love that whatever angle this is, it looks like the TV's little character with his balled up fist
does.
here
That's
and
hilarious.
a little arm in the air. I need to save that camera.
I'm a huge fan of your little walking TV face. That's
All right.
fantastic.
It seems like
obviously over
it seems
there
like
we've
I have
got-
the wrong thing on my screen for my. Like we should switch somehow. Is that you should have whatever I have on my screen on your.
Wow. I love this accidental. Like I'll never get this again. This exact angle with this thing. But let's see. I'm just going to duplicate that whole comp. Pro tip: if you get something good, just duplicate the comp and start working. Well, like I always do. I always duplicate the comp and then continue to work in the comp I was already in, and then realize that the duplicate was where I should have been working. But
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
Oh, that looks like a little CC ball action right there.
all right, Seth, what have you got going on
Well,
over
so
there?
I'm jumping ahead of Darby a little because Darby's about to show some really cool effects he did with the ticker from Loki. So I won't dive into what's going on behind the scenes, like what that part of it actually is. But I'll show you my scene here. I've got. Well, I will show you. Well, okay. So here's what I'll show you. I've got this background I got from Unsplash, which is from an artist named, well, Carolina's in the name. I got this by searching Art Deco on Unsplash and found this cool like shape, and it had the right shape and color for me for like Loki feels.
Lovely.
And then this is from an image of a television that I also got off Unsplash. And forgive me for, I feel like Paolo something is Brando. I'm so sorry, I'm mispronouncing it entirely. I searched for either Tube TV or something like that, and I got this. I actually used content on Michael's suggestion. I used content aware scale in Photoshop. It was a 4:3 alignment,
clever.
and I stretched it out really shockingly easily. I didn't know that tool existed. It's incredible. Extended it out to be more of a 16:9 shape. I cut it out, and then I did some recoloring, and I have the comp here. This is what I have here. I also have an adjustment layer masked around the TV with some levels on it, just so I keep that detail of the screen, but darken it a bit. And then on top of it, I've got this. I was exploring it with Kingpin Tracker, and I realized I'm not going to be moving, so I really could just scale this thing down, which I did, and applied a vignette and then a bulge effect. Here, I'll show you, like, if I go into this comp and I just add I add a new solid and make it, like, let's say red, and then I go back into the main comp. I turn off the vignette here. Maybe I even turn off to where it's no longer using this mask. That's what it looks like with the bulge applied. You know what's better is if I actually go in here and I make this a grid. Then you'll see what's going on. So
That's lovely.
with the bulge effect, that's what it's
So-
doing there.
So I'd forgotten that, we have our new setup where you can see what both of us are doing right now, which thank you so much for figuring out how that
Thank you
could
to
work.
whoever
Seth.
recommended it last week. We were like, well, why haven't we been doing that all along?
It's lovely, and you can see other things. So if you've been, uncrossing your eyes to watch the two of us, right now I have taken the camera and I've really increased the zoom because I want to create a really shallow depth of field kind of shot. And the more telephoto you push the lens, the more your that effect will work. And I'm going to do the same trick that Seth used last week, which is to create a new null object like this, and I'm going to call this the focus null, like that. It's going to be a 3D object right here, and then I'm going to shift select the focus null and the camera, and then go to camera tools, link focus distance to layer. And now all behind the scenes, the focus distance of my camera is now linked up to this specific 3D null. So if I go to the camera and I turn on my depth of field and maybe just crank up the aperture like crazy, zoom in a little bit more so you can see. Let's turn that up. What are we getting here? So I'm going to move my focus null here to the front of this TV a little bit, and I still want more blur. I'm not getting enough beautiful blur on this.
I also should have mentioned on mine. So like what I've got going on my screen is this is my actual image I'm using, which those who grew up on Nick Jr. might recognize as Face from Nick Jr. I just found a video on YouTube of Face talking, got rid of all of his color, played with the levels, inverted him, and then used that as a Luma mat for a cool thing that Darby's going to show us in a second, and ended up with this fun robot face talking. You know, another thing I could do here, put on the screen, we discovered this in our prep, and Darby, you let me know when you're ready to do the ticker. Okay.
Whenever you are.
Then I'll do this real quick, and then I'll hand it over to you. There are a whole set of text tools in Universe, and I just want to show real quick the kind of stuff you can do with this. So screen text is one incredibly cool, and I'm just going to apply this to a solid, and it immediately should render as just a bunch of screen text being typed. And that looks pretty cool, but I think I'm going to go and choose a preset. Which should load any second.
Presets.
Here we go. So look at all this. Like iPhone crash log, JavaScript, CryptoMiner hex dump, install log. I'm disappointed that none of these say you didn't say the magic word with Wayne Knight popping up on top of it. So you can see like super cool and easy way to fill up a screen with text, and I come in here and it's composited onto and I can change those things all I want. Aside from screen text, there's also a thing called text tile, which you can actually bring in. Oh, what am I doing? You can bring in, I believe, CSV files, I'm pretty sure. So text style comes up. You can change the font here. I'm trying to remember. I'm fairly confident you can bring in I think you can bring in okay. I'm not going to actually say anything because I thought you could bring in like CSV information and stuff like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a future thing. Who knows? But now I've got like this cracked passwords list. I'm going to drop this in here. This so I can keep this screen big. So pretty cool that you can just like really quickly apply a bunch of like text and data, random data to a screen. And now I've got this, say this is a screen that's just supposed to be in the background.
That's gorgeous.
And it's just, going back there. So, Darby, Hashi, you got anything else before I head over to Darby?
No, I've added a little bit of camera motion. I ended up linking my camera, making it a child of the focus null. So I could actually just orbit the camera around the point that it's focusing on, which is nice. And I was going to do a little push in on this TV, but then I decided that a manual zoom of the lens might feel more in spirit with the a lower tech solve for just a slight bit of motion in this shot, because I just want a little bit of orbit like this. So I'm going to work on some stuff. But yeah, Darby, what are you up to?
Well, first of all, that TV looks super tight.
Thank you.
Dang, dude. Let me see. So let me share my screen with everybody. Can you see this?
I can. Let's go over and look at it, shall we? Look at that line.
All right, so we're back to the line. But it's going to be a little bit different this time. So in, I believe, episode 2 is like the heaviest that it's featured in. There's a scene where they're doing like a mission debrief before they jump into Rock's cart. And behind them is this big like NASDAQ ticker behind their heads. And there's a lot of little light bulb looking things on it, super pixely. And there's just this timeline kind of flowing behind it, moving to the right. And then a ticker showing location info above the top. So I'm going to kind of show you how we did that. Because that was a little bit different than the Sacred Timeline, because nothing was branching, and it had to have a unique look to it, which we ended up doing as the design team. So let me show you how we did that. It's going to be a little bit different, so we're going to use Trapcode Form this time. Red giant plug right there, right? And so that will be
so much.
what we're going to use to reveal this line. Oh yeah, we got to we got to plug. So something different is going to happen with this line than the previous Sacred Timeline line. First of all, it's going to get much fatter. It's going to get huge.
Okay, see, this is the UI I'm used to. Drop like a massive fat-ass glow onto that, and then like
this, and then
some holomatrix, and then just like crank it all to like 27, put like 8, stack it on top, do ad blend mode for all of it. And then it's just going to be a white screen. And then you have the FUI look that I'm used to.
That looks like you start like a glass of water and then drop a little droplet of milk in there, and that's what you end up with. So let me cut the glow out. We don't need that.
Sorry. Can you go back for a second? Do you often just take a glass of water and a dropper of milk and just go to town?
Yeah, it makes the medicine go down, Michael. Or did you not pay attention to Sherry Boppins?
I have only done that at an IHOP, but multiple times, and I don't know if there's something about IHOP that's making me do that.
It's IHOP. I've been to enough IHOPs to know that it's 100% IHOP's fault that you did that.
All right, let's jump back down to 30. So here's what's going on. We're going to add the same wiggle pass effect that we had before to get that ambient look, only we're going to make it much more evident now that something is happening. Wiggles per second can go up a little bit, and we want the size to kind of give us this weirdness to it. Maybe take out the detail. Let's see. And then correlation, you want to turn this up a bit just so we can remove more instances of it and have a little bit more controls. 70 is usually where I land at. Yeah, so we got something like this now. Much bigger, much more active. And to give it some variation, just like before, we're going to put points on the line and create little animatable path points. But something that's different about this line that we didn't have to do the Sacred Timeline is make this stupid big. So I'm going to extend this line out super far. So we're still getting the same effect, only we have a much bigger line now, and I may, in fact, even increase... No. Oh, there's no increase the size.
So big.
And I'm going to move this sucker...
Again, this is still the size of standard UIs in my circles. In like UI tutorial land, that's like this normal size for like a Iron Man HUD.
This is how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put points across this line.
Whoa!
It's going to look a little wild, but we'll
noodles
that. We're not going to use the whole thing, so I'm just going to... So let's see. So I'm going to take these points and I'm just going to move them up. We're going to kind of create dips and curves and make it look kind of like it's a little bit of a hill. So we'll do some of this. Yeah, there we go. So this is what you want. And again, this is something you constantly play with as you're adding more to the line because wiggle paths is generating it. So as you're going, if you see something that's like doesn't look right, like don't be scared to just kind of get in there and mess with the correlation or something. So this is kind of what you want. Maybe we can turn this down to like 0.5. Yeah, there you go. So this looks super gross and not TVA, but it will become that. We'll call this ticker line. Shoot. And I'm going to set a position here, and we'll do another 5-frame or a 5-second shot. So I'm going to trim my work area, and I'm going to set the position here, and then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to crank it over. So maybe about to like right. Oh wait, I'm doing that wrong. I'm just going to crank it over like this. So we get something like that. So the line's now moving with the wiggle path, and it looks like it's kind of originating from this point over here. And now that I'm watching it move, I kind of want a little bit more wiggle to it. So let's see if we can crank that up. I don't know what I want it to do. Yeah, maybe something like that. We'll crank up the size a little bit too. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is disgusting. Don't worry about it. Just leave it here. This is back to our ticker comp. So this is that line that we just messed with, but pre-composed. Called it ticker line, and it's doing what we just had it do. I'm going to go into Trapcode Form. I'm going to pop this on, and this is like your default box grid that you start with. I'm going to take the particles in Z back to 1. I'm going to turn off the size from link to individual, and I'm going to do X, so X-axis. I'm going to do 1920, which is our comp size, by 1080 for the Y. It's going to look weird, but it's just because of my resolution. You zoom in, you'll see these neatly lined out. And you kind of want this to be very packed, almost very dot gridish, but you don't want it to have a clear, for example, if I took out the Y, you can see these are almost like scan lines. And if I threw in more Y than I had X, you get these like vertical scan lines. And you don't want that. You want things to look even and gritty. So I'm going to add that there, and I'm going to turn up the particle size so they look like big light bulbs. Let's see, I don't want these too close to each other. So I may take out particles in X a little bit. Stretch it out. Yeah, there you go. So the goal of this shot when we got it was there was this board behind Owen Wilson and I believe Hunter, I forget her name, but the Hunter character in the show.
I wish I remember
and
her
it was
name.
showing, it was right behind their heads, and it was displaying behind them. And they had this light bulb grid that was already in there when we got the shot from production. And so they wanted us to replace the screen and make it a grid that's actually doing something. So they wanted like a timeline that's just flowing, showing the flow of time, well, what's supposed to be the flow of time for that era. So it's like, this is the timeline for that.
The LED board, or the bulb board that was in there, are there lights on this thing?
Great question.
Or is it a nice neutral off?
Are you referring to the one that was on there before we touched it?
For the ticker,
on the day
the
when they
plates
shot
you
it.
got.
Gotcha. From what I saw, it looked like they had some kind of bulb effect going on. I honestly couldn't tell if it was displayed on set or if somebody in the previous department added it in there. But they did have a line similar to this, but not as active behind the actors. That kind of gave us some direction. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, from the compositing standpoint, I think Corridor Digital recently covered some of the effects in Loki, and they do discuss how difficult it is to erase in situation light sources, especially when they interact with the characters, if you're going to recomposite something new in there. And I just realized that this timeline behind the characters, half the show, would have had plenty of weird light wrap issues that I don't envy the people who solved that.
Well, that was an issue. So like I was talking about before, Tony was leading the comp team, and I remember we went back and forth on resolution on this and thickness and just how to present it, because there were these like yellow lights behind the actor's head that wouldn't necessarily, like, for example, say the actor's head was here, it'd be bright yellow, but the timeline's up here, right? So we would have to we found ways to get around it, but it was tricky. But that was kind of the fun of working with the comp team and trying to combine design and.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So this is what we got now. Does not look pretty, but I'm going to show you what's going to happen. So I'm going to turn off our pre-comp for the ticker line. Don't really have to look at it anymore. And I'm going to reveal it using this form grid that we just made. So I'm going to go into layer maps, color and alpha. I'm going to go to ticker line for my layer, and I'm going to map over X and Y. And I'm going to want to do, before I do that, I'm going to do lightness to alpha. So basically a Lumimat like Seth just showed you guys. I'm going to go over X and Y, and we get this, which is what you want. And let's jump to 5. I'm going to go ahead and set my work area. Yeah, so you get this nice, super distorted looking line that's just kind of scrolling across. So it has this really cool effect.
But those lights are too tiny for your effect you're actually going for, right? Yeah.
Yeah, these bulbs. Yeah, so we might want to make them a little bit bigger. Like I said, this is something you can constantly play around with. And I might spread them out in X a little bit. Yeah, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the particle that this is generating to show the ticker by using a sprite. What we did on the show is, I remember we made this and we made it like yellow. And then we talked to Marvel and they were like, we want it to kind of look like burnt out. Like this screen, you know, it's TVA tech. Like everything's old, kind of dirty. Like there's wood panels on everything. So they were like, we need it to look like it's been on for years and it's burnt out. And so Andrew was like, can you try to figure that out? And I was like, yeah. I was like, so you want it to look like Chuck E. Cheese? It's like, yeah, like Chuck E. Cheese. So that's what I ended up calling this, is the Chuck E. Cheese line. And I'll show you guys. Andrew made an awesome sprite that I'm going to completely copy from what he made. So we're going to make this our sprite layer.
And it looks like it's an appropriately small sprite, which is a really good tip if you're going to, if you know it's going to end up small on screen. There's no need for an HD sprite going in the mix.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is 50 by 50, super tiny.
Perfect.
And you know what? Just to make Hashi mad, I'm going to use a shape layer.
No. Okay.
We'll use another shape layer.
Happy for him.
And I'm going to draw it from right in the corner. Create a nice little circle. So I'm going to fill this up with, we'll do something like this. So you want it to be still the TVA yellow color, but like I said, burnt out. So we'll start with this, and I'm going to switch this to a radial gradient. I thought it would have saved my color. And so from here, move this over.
Yeah.
Are you guys able to see my pop-up?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you want to leave your black, but this is going to be your middle light. So it is white, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker than white. And I'm going to click along the line here, and I'm going to start adding more color to it. So we're going to add a little bit more of a lighter orange there, and then maybe later down the road here, we're going to add a darker orange, something like that. And then at the transitions, maybe even a darker orange. Yeah, and then I'm going to take this black, and I may not pull it back because it's going to do that on me. I may just take this guy and spread it out. Let's see. Yeah, something like that. So what we've created now is like this subtle gradient for a bulb.
Nice.
Right here in the middle, and it kind of fades out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a new solid. We'll call it fractal. I'm going to add fractal noise on top of it. And this is just going to help us get a nice dirty look, I guess is the best way to say it. In the show, we use this fractal to give the bulb this like nasty, distorted, like gross looking thing. I believe it's either multiply or overlay. Yeah, multiply is what we used. So we ended up with something like that. And you can play around with the settings here and kind of get something that you want. Turn up the contrast a bit. Yeah. So that's what we're looking for.
Look at
right
that.
there.
That's so cool.
So nasty
Real
and
life
dirty.
is just made of tons of imperfections, and yeah.
Yeah.
It really makes things come together.
Yeah, and so this is kind of how it ended up looking, something similar to that. We'll move back up here to ticker, and in the form layer, I'm going to go down to particle, and I'm going to pop into particle type, and we're going to pop it over to sprite. And then here in the texture layer, I'm going to select sprite, and boom. Now you might have to play around with it a little bit, which is pretty normal, and it's usually just in particle size that you have to mess with. Because these things are kind of a weird, you don't want them resolution, you don't want them overlapping with each other. So something like that. Yeah, right there. So some super close up, you can tell it's a sprite we made, but when you look from a farther back perspective, you got something along the lines of that. And
That's so cool.
put some opacity random to kind of give a little bit more depth to it, kind of like some things are burnt out. And since we're using Trapcode Form, the cool thing is that it's not a part of the line. The line is basically being revealed through it. So these dots will stay. So for example, if this dot's turned off here, that dot will always stay turned off as the line continues to move and it's being revealed. Yeah. So you get like a cool, like the board is up and data is being displayed on the board, not the data having that effect on top of it. If that makes sense.
And oh man, and I love this. This is the effect that I was messing around with and made the whole face look out of, because you can really just drop any luminance, like any Luma mat you want into this. So you could like into that pre-comp there and create like a really cool digital screen look. It's so cool.
Yeah, you can really do a ton with it. I mean, the application's endless. It looked super tight though when we were able to finally get it together. We tried a few versions of CC ball action, which definitely has its own place, but it just wasn't working for the way we needed this to be revealed. So Trapcode Form definitely provided a good way out for that.
Well, and something to keep in mind is that if you want to recreate this later and you don't want to have to rebuild the sprite, you can, in fact, export that sprite as a PNG or as, whatever, any kind of image you want. Like, I'm actually doing it right now as we speak. So I'm going to export as burned out bulb.png, and I will, this, Darby, but I'm doing this for the audience.
Okay.
You can, let me switch over to, we're going to see half of yours and half of mine. But if I open up, I have Form here, and I open up the designer here. For the particle type, if I go to choose sprite, I can actually click add new sprite, and then I can grab that sprite that I exported, that burned out bulb, and it will show up. See, I have all these custom sprites from other projects that I've done, like fire and all kinds of stuff, and I have that burned out bulb there now, and that's automatically saved in here, and I can then save this preset, this whole emitter, as my what am I calling this? Darby dots.
Darby dots.
Darby dots.
So my Darby dots, like I can now always pull up in my presets. See, Darbytron was what I called the first one I tried to do. I can pull those Darby dots back up and just go in and just manually select the layer emitter or the layer map that I want to use later on. So you don't have to rebuild the sprite and do a preset every single time.
Yeah, super handy. So this is where we're at now. And so this is all you have to do for the line. So the line that's behind them, this is basically it. And I may speed up the position because we found if it's not fast enough, it won't give the effect of a scroll. So we'll leave it at full. Yeah, that looks like it's moving. So that's what we got now. What I'm going to jump into is the words that were across the top, which use a similar look but have a little bit of a different approach. And at the top, I think it was like Oshkosh, not Arkansas, was it Kansas? Oshkosh, Kansas, I think, or Arkansas across the top. And it was like 1985, threat level high. I think maybe weather was in there. We did a bunch of different versions of it. But I'm going to show you guys how to do that across the top. And then we'll apply a nice effect over everything to make sure that it moves the way something on an old light bulb board would move, I guess, which is very steppy. But that'll be like our last step. So I'll make a new text layer. We'll call this info, and we're going to pre-compose it just like we did our line. So this info. Hop inside, and I'm just going to start writing. I don't know, just made a new layer out of that. Honestly, whatever's in this comp will be revealed, so you don't have to worry too much about how your structure's laid out inside as long as it's being revealed the way it needs to. Dude, I always do this. I'm gonna sit here and make 50 different layers that I didn't type in. I always do this. So, Seth, to keep in honor of my joke from before, Plastopia.
Plastopia.
I'm going to have to leave that in there. If you haven't listened to Seth's podcast, it is hilarious. And he did a hilarious one talking about a future dystopia of plastic.
Literally our worst idea so
plastic's
far.
currency, right?
What?
Plastic is
currency. It's
right?
everything. Yes. Yeah. Thanks to General Denzel Washington, or whatever his character's name was,
Right.
Guy Plastopia. I like how Darby. Thank you, Darby,
yes,
for calling out and plugging my other shows. Writers Room Game.
Oh,
show.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey, have you checked out the Story Clock?
Oh, I have checked out the Story Clock. Oh, there's a green screen behind me. Otherwise, I would have immediately pulled one out.
So, Seth, you're familiar with Plastopia. What year is the peak of civilization?
Oh, well, it's in the future. So 2012, naturally. Which is ahead of us. We still haven't gotten there.
So I'm spacing out by 5, if you're curious specifically what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'm going out by 5.
So you do
threat level.
You just do spaces. You don't do tabs. That's a Silicon Valley joke. You can keep going. Sorry.
I've not watched Silicon Valley, so
I think everyone on the show ended up being problematic, so I can't plug
Seth,
it.
he's too young.
He's too young. Yeah.
That's rough.
I remember there were so many times where like we would be doing effects like this, and they would say something like oscilloscope, or they would bring up some piece of tech, and I literally had no idea what they were referring to. Like I had to research stuff that was like, like I just didn't grow up with it. I just had to go back and like
That would
study
be a good
stuff that
product to
everybody else
make. Is
knew.
like the young person's pop culture guide for working in the workplace. Yeah.
That's so delightful. My kids saw a zoetrope in probably, like, I don't know if it was the zoetrope logo, but it was something like that. And they were like,
I wish
man,
right now we
like,
saw Darby's
movies are
browser
wild.
pop up and Googling like zoetrope.
I have like a list of references on my computer so I can look
I also
them up
like that
later.
we're now roasting our guest, like our special guest that's here for free, and we're like, look how young he is.
So I'm going to apply the effect called offset to this text layer, which is just going to create this infinite scroll, which I love.
Oh my
And
god!
it's so much fun. It just
I think the
keeps
chat
going.
just realized that you look like Loki. I may be misreading the chat, but it makes me really happy.
Do it? Is
It's
it my
gotta be the
hair?
dude? And the chiseled jawline and the.
The chiseled jaw. Well, chat, thank you, I guess. I think. So we'll just, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it does not matter where this starts because it's going to loop infinitely. You don't have to worry about aligning it or anything. It's just going to be scrolling. So we'll leave it right there for now. And you're going to want to animate that. So set a keyframe, go ahead, I believe we're still at 5. Yep. And then I'm just going to drag this guy over. We'll see if that looks too fast, too short. A little too fast, but we're almost on the money.
That is lovely. In the background, I'm going to try to prep a comp that has all of these elements that I have pre-rendered. So once I get these final renders, I can pop them right in.
I hope Ryan Polly is watching right now and seeing that Plastopia is like is continuing to make its.
Oh, I want to continue the joke. It's got to keep going. So this is what you're gonna kind of end up with. Yeah, so what's cool about this is we can apply the color straight in here. No need for a sprite for this specific layer. So yeah, so let me turn off the effect because it'll be easier to manipulate your text like that. I'm going to go here to Plastopia, and I'm going to change this. I said that so seriously.
It was just so straight. I'm gonna quickly go to Plastopia.
Hop over to threat. So what we did in the show was, if you go back and watch episode 2 and you see the ticker, labels were a yellow and then the information was red. So probably should add a colon here that I'm thinking about it. We'll do that. But this was basically just saying, Plastopia.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, now that I think about it, you did have year in there too. Glad I remember that. Let's see. Yeah, so there you go. That makes much more sense. Okay, and so we'll go into year and we'll apply the same color because it's a
So
label.
for this like section, obviously, naturally where am I going with this? This stuff is important information that you know what this information means. However, for the little like I don't know what you call it, but the dressing around the corners of like of a monitor or something like that, or like a HUD, if you get all these different. I know that on HUDs you get very specific with like flight controls and things like that, but on these kind of monitors at TVA, like how much detail and thought are you putting into the science and the actual practicality behind it?
Oh, a ton. I mean, we studied. I say we. And when I showed, let me clarify. When I showed up in January, Andrew basically had all this research going on from like months prior. Like he was so prepped.
That's
and
awesome.
so I was super lucky because I didn't have to just like make it up from scratch. He already had so much info for me to dive into.
Can you talk about what some of that info was for TVA specifically?
Yeah. So a lot of info we were pulling. We were studying a lot of different. The way text was displayed on older like IBM monitors, like stuff you would see like at old airports or like those old like crappy registers like at Home Depot or something.
Yes, cash
like
registers. Yes, that's what we know them as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, right. Sorry, I don't live in that world.
Old world, the world of the olds.
Old world, Plastopia 2012. So we looked at a lot of older tech like that, and we tried to see how things were organized and structured, and we were trying to replicate that. So we would look at spacing, we would look at the way information would pop up. Everything was very meticulous in the way it was being presented because it had to feel grounded to reality, which is super big in FUI. If you're designing a screen and which sometimes if it's alien tech, you can kind of get away with it because it's supposed to be foreign. But for example, like with our TVA stuff, like everybody knows what it's trying to mimic. Like, you know, it's trying to be 90s or 80s technology that looks old school. There's a very real groundness to it. If we were to just make up something completely crazy, you would lose that sense of believability. We wanted to keep it grounded in the real world, but throw in multiverse on top of it, you know? So it's super important to make sure everything kind of lines up. I mean, there were times where I looked at old, like, Windows, like old Microsoft, like loading screens and command prompts.
How far back? Do you know which OS it was?
I think like was it 84?
Okay, pre-95. So we're talking like green screen. No, Windows wouldn't have been green.
I think it was like Windows. It was like the first gen of Windows. I'm trying to remember
the best gen.
Again, I'm too young. I'm too young.
I'm with you.
I mean, Windows really became big with like the 3.1 era.
Yeah,
probably was what you're talking about.
Somewhere around there. So I compiled a ton of pictures and different references and videos of people like rebuilding the old machines and like booting them up. And there was even a point where I opened the command prompt and I timed the blink of the ticker, like where you type, and I copied it exact for the show, so my blink would be exact to the command prompt.
This is why you're a professional, sir. Not even kidding. That level of research is awesome.
Oh, I tried. Well, it's fun. I mean,
Jace
like,
just chimed in. DOS, 100%. We're calling it Windows, but I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. I mean, even my font here is called Perfect DOS, which is a free font, and this is actually what we used on the show. Perfect DOS VGA 437 win. So this is what we use on the show.
It's not free. You're all sued by John Perfect DOS V6983.
I know. Maybe this is a secret ripped thing that I didn't know was actually ripped. That'd be bad.
Would be bad.
All right, so here's the
good thing we're not live.
Here's the offset. Right. Here's the offset effect. I'm already seeing. Dude, this is what would get me in trouble. I would leave, like, for example, this is yellow and this is white. And as I was learning, going through stuff, I would look at this and not catch that. And I'd be like, oh, perfect. And then I would send it, and Andrew would message me back, and he's like, dude.
Colon.
He's like, for real? Your colon's white.
Oh,
I'm like,
your colon's white. That's...
Like, dude, he would catch everything. So, I mean, it's all important. Like, it has to look consistent. Yeah. So, I'm grateful for
You're still not on it. There it is.
Meticulous.
Oh, you're copy and pasting. I see.
I was copying yellow, yeah.
My bad.
So, here's what we got for that. now comes the fun part, the look. So this is all we need in this composition. I'm going to hop back to ticker, and I'm going to reveal this info layer, which is a text, with another instance of form that I'm going to duplicate.
Now, why not recolor the line orange in its own comp and just use the same instance of form? Like, why not put the line and the text all in the same comp and then run it that way? I know the answer. I'm trying to get you there to it. Sorry.
Yeah. So because we wanted color, we wanted things to be red and yellow. If I was using the same layer, it would have to be with the same sprite, which would
You could
limit us a little
colorize the
bit.
sprite, though, but I believe you.
I could have.
But I actually know the answer, and it's size, right? You guys found out the size is going to be different with the sprites between the text and the line, right? Sorry, that's what I was going for. Now I'm just feeding it to you.
Yeah. No, you're good. Well, it was because of color, but we could have colorized a sprite, but it would have been global for this entire. It would have been revealed the whole. We wanted like red and yellow. Yeah. So I mean, I guess we could have. Maybe
no. Can't we do? Hang on, Hashi. Let's teach Darby. Can't we do color maps? Like, can't we use the color from the layer map to colorize the particles, the sprites?
Yeah, we ought to be able to link those up just with a straightforward expression link.
With the offset on top of that as well, like with the moving offset.
You get some interesting things. I realized earlier that I was trying to export a bunch of layers, pressing Control M to make my movies, and have been probably muted for the last 20 minutes. So you've missed all my witty dad jokes along the way.
Oh, no.
You got to stop making your shortcuts match your OBS and your Zoom and your Skype shortcuts, too.
I need a shortcut checklist.
You need like 5 stream decks they're all for different apps.
Let's see. So I also saw that in the chat people were asking about Captain Disillusion. And so the captain has a very busy schedule, but I might be able to get in touch with his intern, Alan, and see what we can figure out.
Perfect.
But yeah, we would love to, friend of the show, would love to have him
100%.
on the program.
So look at what you're doing there, Darby. You've got to get smaller resolution here, or higher resolution of dots, technically.
I do, and I'm going to drop the size down because it needs to be legible. If we got big particles, things become jumbled. So
hang on, though.
I'm going to leave it like 2.
Okay. You said legible.
What's up?
I can barely see that, and I love this.
Yeah, so this is what you were talking about earlier, right? Okay, yeah. So this is actually right here how it looked in the show, or before.
Yes, that's how it looked in the show. That black solid is how it looked in the show.
Yeah, right here. So it's barely visible.
Wow.
We did that because, well, for the biggest reason being, if we had a big particle layer, this is where we ran into an issue. So the bulbs don't line up. One would have, so if we wanted to match the size of these bulbs, let's see if I can get one like right on there. The spacing would have to be the exact same, right? Because there's no way, like these bulbs on the info line are way too close together than what the line is here for the timeline. And this is how we had to have the timeline to look. So we're like, okay, well then we'll space out the bulbs here, but we ran into issues with sizing and legibility, and things looked distorted, and it wasn't clear what it was saying, and it was kind of frustrating. So the way we found out how to get around it was dropping this to 1, making it super, super tiny, and then we'll just duplicate this layer a ton and throw on different effects and different opacities with it, which I'll show you here in a second. But the biggest look that's going to help this kind of have the TVA feel that we need is using an opacity map in Trapcode Form. And we did this on the show to again show it like what I call it Chuck E. Cheese look. Like some bulbs are burnt out, some need to be changed, some are barely working, and we wanted it to have that grittiness to it. So you're just going to take your opacity map and you're going to draw the way you see fit. I kind of curve it around.
I love that.
It's glorious.
And we can smooth it a little bit. You don't want it too smooth. So yeah, we can. I don't even know if you guys can see that on the stream.
No,
but it's
we
very,
can't. That's what I love so much about
dark. It. Yeah, it's very dark. So I'm going to pre-compose that and info together, and we'll just call this ticker global, or just something so I know ticker is encased inside. And there it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back inside the pre-comp, and we're just going to duplicate this layer of form. And as we do that, you'll slowly start to see this come back to life. And inside each of these form layers, we might add a little bit of a different look to it. So maybe a little bit more of a feather here to kind of make it flare out a bit. And I may even go up in size on one. For example, I'll solo these 2 layers out. I may go up in size here, but I may drop the opacity down to like 50% or something. Scale that up a little bit. Don't want it to turn the feather. Too big.
I love this.
Me too.
I would. Seth,
And this is
I
why
would
the
love
line is separate
to-
from the text.
What's that?
This is why the line is separate from the text.
100%.
But yes,
Darby,
you can.
I would love to
answer the
throw-
question from earlier. You can colorize sprites. Yes.
That's what I thought. But
Okay,
still,
cool.
this is the why you do it this way.
So let's see. Yeah.
Glorious.
Let me drip this down through.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Darby, I would love to throw this graphic in the background of a comp that I'm working on. And Seth, if you want to send me either the talking face, or I could also use one of the timeline splitting things and
I'll
comp
send
them
you the
into here.
face. You want it moving?
Sure, that would
Okay,
be
I'll
wonderful.
start the render right now.
And if you're just joining us for any reason, we are here with Darby Faccinto, who worked on Loki, actually made literal graphics that you saw on your Disney Plus screen, which is wonderful. We're trying to recreate some of the amazing FUI that was on screen a good majority of the time they were in the TVA anywhere, which is wonderful. So Seth did his own take of some of the of this bulbification Chuck E. Cheese style.
Oh, I did
And,
nothing. I
Darby is
literally
showing
took
us
Darby's
how the,
effect and just ran Nick Jr.'s face through it. That's it.
Seth is useless.
I'm going to add a Venetian blinds effect, which I found out was a weird effect when I was working on the show, and that some people don't know what it is. So if you don't know what Venetian blinds is, it basically creates literal bars that chops up a graphic, and you kind of have some control over them. I'm going to make this very subtle. But you don't want it to be abnormal. Let's see. Something along those lines. I'm only going to add this to create a little bit more texture to it. And I mean, as you can see, it's literally at 2%. Like, it's very subtle, but it's just helping chop things up as they move.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you end up with something like that, where it looks like the bulbs are turning off and on, very pixely, very old computer-ish. And so we will get this looking right back here in the main comp. So this is what we kind of got right now. And so, Hashi, you said you're going to
Look how
composite
cool that
this?
is.
Yeah, I've got a little pre-comp going on over here.
Okay, so if that's the case, I'll add a border for you. Give it some...
Seth, the chat is someone in the chat is asking if they want to watch Loki, how much of the MCU do they need to see before they can know what's going on in Loki? I have a feeling the answer is going to be a lot.
No. You can honestly, it's such a good show. I would argue you can totally come in blind, and they do a lot of really good exposition and setup in the first episode. I mean, with any of these movies, they're at least trying to give you the bare minimum to be able to, just like if you were to tune into a third season of a show with a friend, like, you get enough to like go off of and try. Oh, hey, what's up, Hosh?
Oh, whoops! I meant to warn you about that.
I would say you can jump right in.
Yes.
And you will be confused about some things, but you'll have the important stuff, I think.
Yeah, you'll miss a few inside jokes, etc. Owen Wilson, who has a majority of the
Heavy lifting.
exposition heavy lifting, had not seen, was not familiar with the MCU. And so
What kind of existence
it's fun to
is
know
that?
that watching.
It's
the show.
probably some kind of happy existence, but at the same time, no. Like, sorry. Anyway, continue.
Oh, it's wild. So I've done a little bit of color grading and a bit of super comping on this monitor here. So I have a nice setup where, let me play through this a little bit so you can kind of see it in motion. I'm using some wonderful atmospheric effects from our friends at Action VFX, and I'm using Super Comp to comp them in a nice way that actually allows the smoke to diffuse the actual imagery behind it. The original model was a little bit low poly, so I did jump in and drop it into a little subdivision surface editor so the round came across as more round. But I also am just noticing now that I messed up some of the texture on the side there. But we'll just pretend that's character.
Hey, I've got the faces rendered out in the Dropbox for you. It's called Face for Hashi.
Oh, wonderful. I would love when people separate faces and deliver them to me.
Hey, you guys want to see how people would normally... So here's the timeline, by the way, and here's how some people I know would not people I know, me sometimes too. Here, look, I'm just going to say this is how people tend to want to composite it, which is to make it look cracked to hell, as glowy as you can possibly get it, with like an instance of holomatrix cracked to 11. Let's turn that vignette up even more. Like, that's what you kind of go for, you think, when you're going to composite something onto a screen. But funny enough, it's like, no. It's like, what I've learned is that you turn everything down to like 1, and that's when you get the look that you're going for. Like, let's turn this vignette all the way down too. This is an interesting thing to comp onto a screen because it's not that much information. Like, it's this tiny little hairline thing, and I'm not even sure. Oh, look at that face. That looks so good on your screen.
Oh, it just drops right in there. So here's Seth's face on this screen. Little optical glow coming through there. Let me see if I can
Gosh, it's so fun.
Make this a little bigger. Still, I'll work at half because you guys are seeing it at half.
I don't know why you're not in this scene. Let me add you to this. I don't know why we can't see you.
You're good.
I probably kicked him off.
Oh, no. I actually never added him to our split screen. That's why.
Well, it's because you're sitting on your screen and Hashi's sitting on his screen, and then where are you going to put Darby? Just in the middle between the two screens, looking.
I'm going to put Darby right here. Hey, Darb, what's up?
Weirdo.
That works.
Here we go. Look at this loveliness.
That's so fun. Hi, I'm Face.
So we got,
Awesome.
Center that up a little bit better. Yeah. Oh, this is fun. I can't share all the literal assets, but I could certainly share a pre-render of this setup. So if you all wanted to throw your own screen on here, you could. Would that be something people are interested in? Chat.
I imagine it probably is. I did a little thing too yesterday with my face bot. I animated a little.
When are you not doing something?
I know. I'm always doing something with my face. This is the drone that I animated in my office flying around. And I did what you did there, where I just took the screen texture and added that pre-comp of the face onto it. And now I've got this character that I absolutely want to make a series of shorts about. I don't know what it is yet, but
Seth, yesterday I got lunch with my dad, and you texted me that video. And I saw him look at it and not like even comprehend what was going on, and I just didn't explain it. I was like, forget it. Forget it. Don't even try.
This is a close friend? What?
This is what I do now, Dad.
This is a close friend? That's what all my friends' dads ask.
Okay, Hashi, I think I got something for you.
Oh, delightful. All right. So I will...
Let's see. I'll render it out.
Let in. All right. Are you? Is it? Have you sent, or are you meaning you're about to render out something for me?
I'm about to render out something for you. Sorry.
Beautiful. I think I'd love to put something orange in the background here, super, blurred out, but some of that light influencing this fog would be just a nice bit of variation to this the color I have going on here.
Dude did in his famous Getting Started with Supercom tutorial and just throw an orange solid back there, thin, long.
That's a
solid.
good point. You know what? Yeah, let me make a new. I'm gonna make a new composition. That way I can swap it out in a moment. But it's gonna be just a big orange solid.
That was actually Big Orange Solid is the name of a Nickelodeon biography that documentary everyone should read. Actually, there is a great documentary called The Orange Years that I think I've talked about on here before. That's great.
Gorgeous. All right, let's throw our orange into our super comp situation here. So super comp is going to look a little bit bizarre on a half screen here, but I'm going to try anyway. Let's add our orange solid right
like
here.
Turtle. It's a hero and a half screen.
Wow. Excellent.
Wow. Love. All right. There's the orange. And look at this. It's so fun to just throw things in here. All right. So here's our orange. And whatever orange kind of thing we have, I'm going to want it to glow. I'm going to want it to glow around the monitor like this. So let's go to our glow settings here. Yeah, it's loving being this small in frame right here. But let's see. All right, I want the size to be high, even crazily high, because I really want the idea of this fog doing a number on it.
Oh, look at it diffusing through the fog, though. Ugh.
Isn't that cool? And I don't need that amount of the glow, but just having it, yeah, something like this. Look at that color just really propagate outward here. And now that there's more detail back here, I could actually probably go to my fog layer here, which is running a blur behind effect. And let me turn that on and off. If I have that off, you can see that blur appearing and disappearing. But if I maybe turn up the size of this blur and the amount, I can crank it up like crazy. That's too high. I'm blurring. But it is. What's nice is it's really cool to see the fog do some of its own diffusion here. So it's an animated diffusion flying around. Like, look at how atmospheric and fun this looks. And just a reminder, this is coming from, let's see, these layers like that. So a much uglier setup before they go through some super comping. Look at that. Now it's Lokified.
Dang.
So for the blending modes in Super Comp, I really like getting to have some color control over stuff. So I almost always pre-compose my fog element and then use the layer itself. I apply the set matte effect and use using its luminance as its own matte. That way, I can use this layer as basically as itself, and that allows me in Super Comp to still have color correction controls and blur behind and use it as a bunch of different visual things, as opposed to just doing like a screen blending mode or something on fog where you don't really get you get no interactivity with the rest of things.
Hashi, I have something for you, but I'm just going to get it over to you.
All right, that sounds wonderful. Yes, once we have it, yeah, whoever receives it, throw it over to me.
Seth, I'm going to try to email it to you again.
Don't tell me out loud which email you're using, but I don't know how to communicate this to you.
Fax it on over. Does it have numbers in it? And
no numbers. Is it at a certain company?
Is the password Hunter2? Darby's too young for that joke, too.
Well, it's Sexy Whirly, right?
Sexy Whirly at
Onlyfans.com?
I'm so sorry about the business model shift.
It's
Seth.
Okay. It hurts me, but I'm going to get through it.
I'm surprised no one's mentioned the great ability to create the Larry King background.
Most people, our audience is known to
technique.
reference Larry King regularly.
We need that standalone YouTube tutorial. Is the Larry King background After Effects tutorial, because
because Darby knows exactly what to do, which is just take his thing he's got, his little form setup that he's made, and drop in a map in there, and then you have the background to Larry King Live.
Boom. Larry King Live.
Oh, guys, it's 2:05. I just realized. What do we got left to do?
Wow.
Well, I'm sending Seth. I just emailed you the file. So
all right,
I
I'll
hope
check
you
and
have
see
that.
if I do.
If not, I can do something else real quick.
What am I trying to do here? All right, let me come check that out. I'm gonna go to here while I check my email. So we learned a lot today.
We did.
I learned that
about
Darby doesn't have
ourselves.
my email.
Oh,
Maybe
is
not.
that not the right one? Oh, interesting. So I'm looking back at what I rendered to you, Hashi, and I'm seeing something weird happening that I didn't realize happened.
Which was totally intentional if the production
Yep.
designer likes it.
Right. So I'm going to leave that and not mention it.
Perfect. Love
Hashi,
that.
you're looking like, yeah.
A little flat. You're looking a little flat.
I mean, cool though.
Oh, it's lighting in here.
I love that you made that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't even know you had that.
Are you animating it? Oh, perfect. Yeah, Darby, I don't think you have my email, sir, because I've got nothing.
Okay, text it to me.
Oh, I could have done that. Yeah.
See the technologies that go into the behind the scenes of this show.
Oh.
The other one you're sending to is real, but it's on a totally different service now that I have to open up.
World.
Whoa.
Okay.
I'm just jumping for joy over here.
Oh, man. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is uploading and I'll send it. Hashi, you should be able to just drop this in, add whatever you think looks good to it, and then it should just look pretty cool on that TV.
Oh, I'm excited. Let's see. Let's make the orange stripe 3D so it can react to this scene camera.
Well, we
And
can't
then-
see anything right now because Seth does not want us to see his screen
I
as
can
he
go in
logs
now.
into his email. So
All right.
All right, Seth, you should have this now.
Checking.
Delightful.
Ah, there we go.
Sweet.
All right. Through the miracle of internet, we are going to pass around some files, and then I will watch for it to appear in my VFX and
Darby,
Shield
I have to request
Dropbox.
access to this.
Oh, yeah, I know. I wanted you. It's kind of a power thing. I wanted you to do it. Oh, I can give you a message?
Great.
Oh, it's because you opened it from a different email.
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Sorry, it forwards. I have like 20 emails.
Right. Okay. Try
There
it
we
now.
go.
That should work. I just shared it.
All right.
Cool.
I'm going to download this, and it's going to go straight to the Dropbox for Hashi.
Woohoo!
Boom.
your little excited cartoon
Isn't
character
it?
is so great.
He's just so excited to be here, man.
Here it comes, Hash.
All right. It's watching my. This is intense. Okay, I see the Dropbox logo thing. It's thinking about it. And Yeah. All right, which folder am I looking
Renders,
for?
yeah,
Is
it's
it
a
in the
zip
renders? A zip file.
Darby renders everything as zip files, and so
Jay says that this is like exactly like real world productions.
Oh yeah,
This moment right here.
Yes.
I
So-
sent you the
so
what's
file.
the actual email? Which Dropbox? It's in renders. Renders _ final _ 1 _ 2 _ 3.
Yeah. And then you do all that, and then you realize you made a little mistake, and then you have to re-render everything and fix it. Like the colon's white, that kind of stuff.
Yes, something. Yeah, not good to hear from your doctor or your supervisor. All right. VFX and chill. I also have 2 identical directories for the VFX and chill show in general, because one is the save it all on Seth's computer also, and one is the just keep it for myself.
This is so weird. I'm going to share this with the show because I'm watching it happen outside my window right now. The man who used to live in my house moved across the street to another neighborhood. And yes, and every day he drives by my house, he stops and looks directly at it. And will just sit there and look at me through the window sometimes and then drive off. Like he'll stop.
What?
That's
Yeah, I don't know,
think
guys.
that's
This is like an external haunting.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're supposed to die first, though.
The house is dead to him.
Yes, he thought I stole his Star Wars cards when he moved out.
Oh, really?
Which I didn't. Yeah, there's a whole drama behind it we can get into later.
Do you think he's not watching? We know where he is right at this moment, so.
Yeah, I know. He's not sneaky about it, so.
All right, so let me pre-collapse this orange screen you have. Wonderful. So I'm throwing it in the background here now. I have it in its own little pre-comp here. I'm going to scale it up real big for just a second and see what it looks like when it comes through. Oh, man. See, just a nice, it's so subtle. You never go subtle on this show, but it's beautiful to see something like that.
And we never will.
Which means I'm going to dive in and I'm going to adjust its exposure so I can see more glow in the background there. Yeah.
That looks great.
See, he tries to go subtle and I bring it right back. But now I'm going to scale it back down. And let's see. What is the scale here? Oh, am I squashing it too? I didn't mean to be squashing it. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to scale this section down, and then I'm going to, why not? I'll just reptile it out. Yep. This is probably so subtle you can't see it on the screen.
Yeah, can't see anything.
All right. Hey, there we go. Now we've got, you can see it in Super Comp where it's somewhere in the background there.
There we go.
Love it. Okay, let me lower it down a little bit. What I should do here is open up 2 windows so I know what I'm doing. But, quick tip in After Effects, if you're ever doing something like this where your pre-comp affects your final image, you can always go up here and say View New Viewer, and then have a second little viewer right here that you could maybe stick, just like that. And then that one will, you'll see the little lock icon there, so it's going to keep that screen up, even when I come over to my pre-comp to just kind of adjust if this thing is high or low, or rotated or whatever. Yeah, I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to rotate it off axis a bit just in case. That makes it look more 3D. I don't know. I'm not getting as good a comp out of this as I wish I were.
That's how I'm feeling about anything I'm doing over here.
The constant note. All right. Also, it may have to do with the VFX and chill level of subtlety, which is non-existent. All right. Let's open up 2 comps and the thing in the half screen format. Let's go to the color correction here, and I was really overexposing it to try to make it visible, but let me close my extra viewer, close my panel. Yeah, we'll go with the subtle version, and then I'll tilde that to full screen, and we'll play through.
Plastopia.
Wow,
this looks awesome, man.
this is so fun. So from scratch, we've created an amazing Loki-esque monitor with look at that. I think my background graphic wasn't as long as the orange solid was.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
man, that looks great.
This was
Yeah, it
fun,
was.
everyone.
Yeah.
Man,
Thank you, guys.
Darby, thank you. You were
Absolutely.
the one to thank. Guys, audience, everybody out there, please clap audibly where you are, in your car, in your home, in your office. Clap where we can audibly hear it until I can hear it. And then Darby knows he is truly a professional. Thank you, Darby, for joining us on this show today, dude. This was such a blast.
Yeah. Guys, thank you for having me on. It was so much fun sharing all this stuff with y'all. So much fun.
Well, dude, please come back. You're welcome back anytime. I'm sure you're working on something incredibly exciting that we will all be blown away by when it comes out. And don't say anything else because we've made it this far without you getting fired.
Not
Good.
saying anything.
Everyone dies.
I would just run off camera.
All right. Well, Hashi, you got anything you want to leave the people with?
If you come back and check on this video later, you'll be able to find a link to download a version of this screen that you can insert your own whatever kind of display you'd like into it. And yeah, if you ever have something fun like that you want to share with us, share it on social, tag us, Red Giant News, or either of us, Seth or me, and follow Darby.
Follow Darby.
While you're
Yeah.
At your
Follow
name.
me. Just Darby Faccinto. I base my self-esteem off of Instagram
Oh, good.
likes.
That's healthy.
So
That's
if you
completely
want me
good
to
and healthy.
Yeah, if you want me to feel good.
Well, great. And then make sure if you talk to us, tag hashtag VFX and chill, and we will hopefully see it and make your dreams come true, just like Darby has today. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time on VFX and chill.